Okay, you just want to say your name and
Yeah. My name is Andrew Bohr, and Abe was the first person I ever met in Seattle. He came to pick my father and my brother and me at the airport when we first arrived from Prague via Vienna and New York, and he was mainly responsible for us ending up in Seattle. And it's a long story, but I was very fortunate about 5 years ago to be on the same jury selection pool, and I got a chance to catch up with him, and we spent about 2.5 hours talking, or 3 hours talking. And so he remembered a lot of the stories, and the way he got to meet my father was when he was still in London, working in London as a post-residency, I think. Somebody asked him, well, what would you really like to do while you're in Europe besides in the UK? And he said, well, one of the things I'd really like to do is meet a communist doctor. And so somebody arranged for him to meet my father, who was a pediatric cardiologist in Prague. And my mother was a pediatrician as well. And so it was a very, this was back in the dark ages and under communist rule, and so my father was very circumspect about, because everybody was watched very closely. And it wasn't until they were alone for a while that my father then kind of revealed to him that he was Jewish, and told him about kind of how we got through the war, but they became very good friends, corresponded a lot, and Abe and Judy visited us in Prague when we still lived there. And then my father had a chance to spend 2 years as a visiting prof at Johns Hopkins. Couldn't bring the family, so he was there by himself, but during that time he came out to Seattle and visited Abe and Judy, and then when we decided to leave in 1966, Abe was probably the first person that my father contacted after we started our asylum process, and being the irrepressible person that he was, he sort of got things in motion and got Senator Magnuson to intercede on our behalf, and the result was that our visa was processed in record time, and it was largely Abe and Maggie together, but he was just a wonderful person, and he could also be very challenging, as you know, and very sort of confrontational, and which is all good, which made him as effective as he was. And it was fun catching up with him, and he told me some of these stories, and also, and my father shared a lot of the same traits. He was fairly direct, and sometimes, could be a little abrasive. So I remember when Abe told me right after my father started pediatric cardiology at the University of Washington Medical School, that the chair said, well, thank you so much for bringing us together and bringing Dr. Bohr out here. And Abe told me that he told him, well, don't thank me just yet. Why don't you wait a few weeks to see if you really think it was such a good idea. But that was Abe in a nutshell.
It sure was.
Sure, it's Eleanor, or Ellie Graham.
Okay.
And let's see, I met Abe probably sometime in the early 1980s. I can't remember, one really kind of funny time I went into Abe and I was complaining about something, some program I couldn't get, going in the direction I wanted to go in. And I think I had on, a long skirt that I had since the 1960s, and, kind of maybe the 60s type top, on. And Abe looked at me and he said, now the problem with you is you've never gotten out of the 1960s.
Yeah.
And I said, well, Abe, I never saw any reason to get out of the 1960s.
He loved that about you.